Coming to you from the mobile Hudson Media Group studio, right here in the Uribe compound, this is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, I don't know about you, but I am so tired of U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If it's not one silly statement, it's another. But quite frankly, she's kind of like a reminder to all of us why, Latinas can be so annoying. And of course, I'm not painting with a broad brush, of course. But before you get triggered, let me just give you a little bit of a heads up here. I'm Latino, so I can talk about this. But aside from the fact that she reminds you of that girl you just don't want to bring home to your parents because she's annoying and won't stop talking, the problem though, folks, and again, before I trigger any feminists or any activists out here that want to say this is sexist or misogynist, which it is not, I'm simply pointing out the obvious. But it's not so much the fact that she's annoying and she's really sort of fulfilling that sort of obnoxious stereotype that we all can't tolerate. The more sort of disturbing part is the fact that she can actually influence policy. And she's attempting to do so, folks, and that's very dangerous. So let me just give you a little bit of a background here about what makes her, again, annoying, but also sort of very frightening when it comes to discussing policy, even during this COVID-19 crisis. Now, this past week, she appeared on multiple news outlets to talk about what's going to happen to our economy and ultimately when Americans will be able to go back to work. And let me just give you some quotes here, folks, that sort of unpackage this a little bit and just remind you how just silly she sounds every time she goes in front of a camera. Now, of course, she argued that many Americans should protest economic insecurity by refusing to go to work after any coronavirus-related restrictions are lifted. Now, she went on to say, quote, "When we talk about this idea of reopening society, only in America does the president, when the president tweets about liberation, does he mean to go back to work? When we have this discussion about going back or reopening, I think a lot of people should just say no. We're not going back to work. We're not going back to working 70-hour weeks just so we can put food on the table and not even feel some sort of semblance of security in our lives." Now, of course, folks, these comments came in front of multiple news outlets this week. And one of the things that was disturbing, I think, was the fact that the freshman congresswoman received plenty of attention for her response to the economic fallout from the current coronavirus pandemic. Recently on Monday, she posted an apparent celebratory tweet in response to oil prices collapsing. She went on to say, quote, "You absolutely love to see it." Now, of course, she has since deleted this tweet because it brought her a lot of backlash since posting it. Now, the snapshot is being acknowledged as a turning point in the climate movement. Fossil fuels are in long-term structural decline. This, along with low interest rates, means it's time, and it's the right time, to create millions of jobs transitioning to renewable and clean energy, a key opportunity. Now, folks, as the country grapples, quite frankly, with massive job losses induced by these restrictions, rallies have taken place in several states across the country, with some attendees wearing, quote, "Make America Great Again" hats and even wearing Trump flags during these rallies. Now, one of the things that's sort of interesting is, folks, again, that public health experts have gone on to say on the record this week that they've warned against any easing of the shutdowns must be accompanied by wider testing and tracing of infected people to keep the virus from coming back with a vengeance. Now, President Trump has maintained, however, that the solution to the coronavirus could be worse than the problem itself. Now, of course, recently the president went on to say that he urged 3 state governments to, quote, "liberate their people from restrictions that have impacted economic activity." But of course, as I alluded to previously, it didn't take really any amount of time for the freshman congresswoman out of New York to opine on the subject. And folks, and this is again what makes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dangerous. And I know everybody seems to sort of fall in love with her on the left, and many progressive elected officials or progressive journalists or progressive activists look at AOC as this sort of savior or someone to put on a pedestal. Well, I surely don't do that, and I never will. And the fact is, and again, it's not because she's a woman, because listen, there are just as many annoying and obnoxious men that seem to sort of convey the same sort of intellectually bankrupt rhetoric when it comes to economic policy. But what's really infuriating, folks, is that, listen, all we heard, right, in the fall of 2018, when she defeated during the primary, in the summer of that year, a man who was, let's be honest, a very corrupt and career politician in Joe Crowley, well, a lot of people in her district in both Queens and the Bronx looked at AOC as perhaps, hey, the next wave of young leaders in government. Well, folks, as we all learned, obviously, and even since taking office, AOC has been nothing but really an embarrassment. And you know what? For someone that preaches up and down about the fact that she has an economics degree from Boston University, which is a very prestigious school. I don't want to take anything away from the school or from her per se. But you know what? With some of the things that she says that quite frankly are just foolish, it would make you wonder, well, was she asleep the days that they taught Econ 101 or even basic math? Because when you listen to AOC talk about economics, folks, it's downright disturbing. All right, folks, pretty much what she's telling you is that, you know what, don't go back to work. Just stay home and wait for a government check. Now, again, of course, she doesn't apologize for the fact of being a socialist. And that's something that, quite frankly, I'll never applaud or I'll never approve of on this program. But for a lot of Americans, what AOC is saying, well, makes sense. And I really don't know how that does for you. For someone that, again, preaches all about her economic prowess and the fact that she's so educated on matters of economics, folks, just listen to her. She continues to be absolutely clueless. But I'm sure that many on the news feed, and I'm sure even many who watch this program today, will say, well, Fernando, you're just sexist. You're just talking down to Latinas. You are just being a misogynist. No, I'm not. I'm simply talking the truth like I do every single week here. But one of the things that people don't like is hearing truth, right? It seems to be sort of engulfed by this necessity to camouflage it with some sort of coddling or to smooth things out when it comes to narratives. Well, folks, I won't do that here on this program, okay? I'm here to tell you what you need to hear. And sometimes, folks, the facts are inconvenient. And when it comes to AOC, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't see it by now, I don't know what it's going to take. But AOC is just downright dangerous. And folks, I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm not trying to sound like apocalyptic in my rhetoric whatsoever. But just listen to her. Whether it's the first day she took office on January 1st in 2019, or even recently when she's talking about oil prices falling and the fact that Americans are losing their jobs, right, because of oil prices plummeting the way they have. And she wants to look at that as a good thing. Okay? And why is she doing that? Because she wants to push her green agenda. Folks, listen, I'm all for taking care of the planet. I'm all for being, environmentally responsible. But this climate hysteria that's sort of being perpetuated by people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her liberal, colleagues in Congress, it's just madness. It's downright madness. Okay, we're not going to be underwater anytime soon. And what did I hear? I don't know. Back in at the end of 2004, 2005, right? Remember when Al Gore, the former vice president, released his eco documentary called An Inconvenient Truth? Well, folks, I watched it with an open mind. And since then, if you remember, all Al Gore warned us about that was by 2010, perhaps we'd be underwater, we'd be facing some serious catastrophic impact from, what he would call global warming. Of course, that's been changed since then, since it doesn't fit the narrative. Now it's climate change. Who knows what it'll be 10 years from now? But folks, here's a newsflash. We're not underwater, okay? You can keep eating meat, okay? Keep driving your SUV around to either go to work, go to school, or just do your errands on the weekends, pick up your dry cleaning, whatever it is. Folks, this idea about, climate change, quite frankly, is nothing more than climate hysteria. Now, again, I'm not a scientist and I'm not claiming to be one, but folks, the optics are there, all right? The eye test is there, okay? All I've heard for the last few years is, you know what, folks, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it changes all the time. We'll be underwater. We're not going to be here. We're going to be, suffering from the catastrophic effects of climate change. And all I've heard for years is this nonsense. And someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez continues to be complicit in, and also the liberal media is complicit in sort of putting forth this narrative and trying to scare us all. Okay, I don't know about you, Alexandria. I'm not happy that Americans lost their jobs. I'm not happy that Americans were, unemployed because of plummeting oil prices. Now, again, of course, that's great for all of us, but a lot of us aren't driving right now. As far as I'm concerned, I know a lot of people that are home that have their cars with a full tank of gas. Of course, many of us who are not essential workers are probably not out and about driving. So I get it. Maybe our dependence or the necessity of oil isn't there. But the idea that you think it's okay for Americans to lose their jobs And to now think that, oh, okay, this is my way to sneak in a green agenda. No, it isn't, folks. We've seen a lot of green projects become absolute busts in recent years, whether it was Solyndra in the state of California or the hundreds of thousands of dollars that New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, right, has spent and wasted taxpayer dollars on in the recent years. So listen, do we need to be better to the planet? Absolutely. Do we need to recycle? Do we need to do all the things that we possibly can to keep our water clean, to keep the air clean? Yes, absolutely, folks. But it doesn't just fall on us. Okay? It falls on other countries, which, let's be honest, pollute the planet infinitely more than we do. Countries like China, countries like India. Folks, listen, that doesn't make me racist or bigoted against Indians or Chinese people or those societies, but those are governments and countries that pollute the planet 10 times worse than we do. But why aren't they being held to account? Why aren't they being denounced on the world stage? It always seems to fall on us, the United States. And of course, this enables climate hysterics like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others in Congress and in the media and even in liberal Hollywood to push forward this sort of, green agenda. Now, I don't know about you folks, but again, it's a reminder about someone like AOC that, quite frankly, she doesn't belong in government. I can only hope that she gets primaried out later this summer, but who knows if that'll happen. But when you listen to her talk, folks, it's just a staunch reminder that, quite frankly, for someone that, again, claims to have an economics degree, which she does, I'm not trying to take that away from her, nor am I asking to see her transcript, but folks, for someone that has an economics degree, I'll tell you, you probably can't find a more clueless person in American society when it comes to Econ 101. And quite frankly, that's something we should keep an eye on because you know what? More and more people seem to sort of follow AOC and think that she's someone to admire. She isn't. She's someone to loathe and she's someone to fear because at the end of the day, she can try to influence policy. And in many respects, she's attempting to do that right now and even in the present day. Folks, I don't know about you, but let's keep an eye on this and let's try to sort of, denounce these sort of, irresponsible statements and this sort of reckless policy and rhetoric that's being put forth by people like AOC and the like in not only Congress, again, in the liberal media, and also in liberal Hollywood. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. During the recent edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was fellow broadcast journalist and the chief news correspondent for the Hudson County View, John Heinis. We talked for over an hour on a variety of different topics, but here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we talked about a story he covered last week concerning New Jersey State Senator Cunningham of the 31st Legislative District right here in Hudson County, in which he introduced a bill on the floor of the state Senate to help college students during the current COVID-19 crisis. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
State Senator Cunningham here in Hudson County, great public servant. She's been a great lady coming on my show multiple times and very transparent. And when I started to introduce a bill in the state Senate in Trenton that would help alleviate a lot of the financial burdens that college students are dealing with right now because of COVID-19, I have to tell you, man, I mean, this really hit close to home to me because I know that I feel for so many of my kids that were expecting to graduate next month. And I get it, whether it's at a community college or at the state university, our alma mater, Rutgers University, kids are looking forward to commencement. It's a really fragile time. And I remember how much we look back on what a great experience that was. And and I feel bad for my kids that currently are in community college or kids that have transferred out to 4-year colleges and universities. They're not going to have that wonderful experience next month. But even for those that aren't graduating, for kids everywhere in New Jersey, John, it's, I feel for them. There's so much uncertainty, not just so much this semester with the financial woes of not being able to, be on campus and whether or not these economic difficulties are hitting all students, really, I think they are. But at the same time, the impact it's going to have on enrollment in the fall. I'm concerned about what I'm looking at in terms of, the enrollment for colleges and universities. So when I see Senator Cunningham, introducing a bill, and I believe it did pass, according to the article you mentioned, Bill S2356, the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, it did pass. Well, it should hopefully pass onto both chambers of the legislature and get to Governor Murphy's desk. These are just some of the things we're living through, right, John?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've heard the governor speak about the challenges in education. I mean, I know some people were upset with him a few briefings ago, definitely in the past week, when he said that schools were closed at least through May 15th, and I think a lot of people took that the wrong way. I think a lot of people thought that that meant that the schools would open for a short time at the end of the year, and I don't believe that's what he was saying, and I think he's clarified that. That was either today or yesterday. He just basically wanted to give people an update and say that, look, there's a lot of challenges with our learning institutions.
John, I think we're kind of losing you there a little bit. You still with me, John?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
We've also heard. That's okay. We've also heard from the New Jersey Commissioner of Education, and I was just saying that with the challenges into next year, there's talk of wearing masks in the classroom and social distancing, even on school premises. Who knows how that's going to work? I mean, obviously, on your level for the college, it can be done. You could do classrooms of 10, 12, 15 people. You could spread a couple seats across an auditorium or a classroom. Obviously, though, for the kids, I mean, we're talking K through, maybe even fifth grade, good luck getting them to try to stay away from each other and keep those masks on. I don't know how that's going to work.
Without a doubt, there's a lot of uncertainty for college students all throughout New Jersey, but hopefully State Senator Cunningham's legislation will go a long way in helping them during the academic year here in 2020. Secondly, we talked about the ongoing legacy of Councilman Michael Youn out of Jersey City and his recent passing, and more specifically, the impact it's going to have on filling his seat, and of course, all the rumblings that's going on throughout Jersey City about who are some of the contenders and who ultimately should fill that seat when the time comes. Let's check out what he had to say about it.
Regardless of COVID-19, I think is it's a real loss for the city of Jersey City and for the city council, John.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not much that can be said that hasn't already been said about Michael at this point. I mean, Councilman Youn had a tremendous presence in Jersey City. I mean, obviously he was known for his stewardship and his service in the Heights, but, people throughout the city knew him. I mean, of course, that bow tie, that alone made him known statewide to a point. And, that civic association was always churning. I mean, he was always helping out the seniors. I mean, his holiday events were second to none. It was, he was just a really special guy, and I thought he was the appropriate person for the job. And, you don't always see that throughout the county, throughout the state, throughout the country, but I thought he was a great fit. And, it's a real shame that he's gone so soon, so suddenly.
No, listen, you're absolutely right. And I think what's even been sadder is, and I kind of talked about this on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and I also talked about it just last week on my Spear show, but I'm not surprised that it's become somewhat political now. Like anything else in politics, you can only grieve for so long until people start to, begin to chatter what's going to happen with his seat. And I know in the last 72 hours, I've been seeing different social media posts. I've been seeing, people like Bruce Alston, who I like Bruce, and I respect him highly and the good work that he does with the Hudson County Chronicles. I know he's taken to Facebook Live recently to sort of, I think, call out people that are trying to maybe manipulate this process when it comes to filling his seat. And, I'll sort of go on record in terms of what he said. I'm just sort of paraphrasing. But I don't have an issue against anybody and any names that are being floated out there, whether it's former Assemblyman Sean Connors or other members. But it just seems like, can we wait a little bit, though, until, maybe we can grieve a little bit more? Again, I'm not trying to sound hyperbolic here or melodramatic, but it just seems like, hey, whether it's local politics, state politics, or national, John, it's people don't waste any time to try to exploit this. And I think that's what people have been trying to do here locally, just exploit this. Let's let the process marinate naturally and organically. I'm not saying that, it has to be, we have to wait 5 months for this, but my God, give me a break. Let the family grieve. Let's not just start making it political and let's start naming people or naming successors. I just think it's not appropriate. I think there's a time and place for everything. It's time for that, John. That's just how I feel. And I'm just speaking as a person. This is the humanitarian in me. I'm not even looking at it politically. I'm just looking at it humanely, brother. How do you see it?
Yeah, so look, within probably a few days of Councilman Yoon's death, people were already asking me, not a lot of people, but some, were asking me, who do you think is going to take the seat? And I was hesitant to even ask
same
around.
Here.
Like you said, because just respect for the family, just, giving them and the friends time to grieve, time to process the loss. But look, inevitably somebody ended up writing a story that, the appointment due to state statute is 30 days. That was NJ Globe. And, look, the 30 days, unfortunately, is the 30 days, even in a situation like death. There's really no provision for that. There's no amnesty or anything like that. So that's why you're seeing now the past, like you said, 48 to 72 hours of news reports about the potential successor. I mean, it's clear that, like you said, Sean Connors is a guy interested in the seat. I also, I've heard a few other names. David Cruz, who I know, as a ward leader over here, the former JCDO chair, the local Dem Party chair, Sean Sully, Thomas Sullivan, Jimmy Carroll, who was a colleague of Sean Connors for the JCPD. He's still currently a deputy chief. So there's a story on that on the site today, Hudson County View, that is. And look, at the end of the day, the council, through the administration, I should say, pulled the agenda item on Monday, and they're going to have to vote in 2 weeks. So, I guess, as much as I hear you and I understand that, people might feel like it's too much too soon. I mean, unfortunately, the law is the law, and I think it only makes sense that the conversations are coming to the forefront now.
Undoubtedly, it was a very informative episode with Hudson County View Chief News Correspondent John Heinis. And again, you can listen to the episode in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking to Hudson. You can listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And we'll go to Jersey City right now, where a very prominent question was being asked by Joshua Rosario out of the Jersey Journal. And really, it goes as follows. Will a former state assemblyman succeed Michael Yoon on the city council? That's a big question going around, folks, in Hudson County's largest city. Let me just give you some facts here to sort of unpackage what's going on right now as it pertains to the seat in the Jersey City Council. Now, Sean Connors, who represented the state's 33rd Legislative District here in North Hudson from 2012 through 2015, is among a handful of potential candidates being considered to fill the Ward D seat left vacant by the death of Michael Yoon. Now, Yoon died of coronavirus complications on April the 6th after more than a week in the intensive care unit at the Jersey City Medical Center. Now, Connors appears to have already the support of Ward C Councilman Richard Boggiano, a close friend and ally of Michael Yoon. Now, during a recent council caucus, Boggiano said he and Yoon had discussed who they would want to replace him if something happened to either of them. Connors, who ran against Yoon in 2013, was Yoon's choice for his replacement, according to Councilman Richard Boggiano. Quote, I spoke to Michael Yoon's son and his family, and they agreed. And they said that his father wished that too. I think Sean had wanted to be there, and of course, he's well known throughout Ward D. He's very popular and is a good community person. Thinks it's sort of the same way I do, in the same way that Michael Yoon did, and many of us think along the same lines. Now, Connors could not be reached for comment when this news story broke. Now, whoever indeed is tapped, though, for the Ward DC will have to run for re-election this November, folks. And the winner of the November race will fill out the remainder of Michael Yoon's term, which is set to expire at the end of 2021. Now, the council must select a replacement within 30 days of Michael Yoon's death. Now, of course, Michael Yoon's former campaign manager in 2013, Cynthia Hadianis, and Yoon's volunteer coordinator in 2013, Patrick Ambrosi, have also thrown their hats into the ring concerning filling that seat. Now, folks, what's interesting about this is, listen, I understand that politics has to continue, but quite frankly, and even as John Heinis during this week's podcast said, the law is the law, and he's absolutely right. But the idea, folks, is that, listen, let's try to grieve a little bit more if possible. Okay, it just seems like we're sort of rushing this, and I understand there's a deadline. There is a state law that requires the seat, or at least an appointment, be named within at least 30 days after the death of an elected official, and I get all that. But folks, this has really hit all of us hard, and I understand that the law is the law. But one thing we have to take for certain is who's going to be involved in this process. Okay, who ultimately Michael Yoon would have liked, and again, we'll never know. Certainly we're going by speculation. We're certainly going by, accounts of Councilman Richard Borgiano, who I find to be very credible, so I don't want to sort of take anything away from what he's saying. But I'm sure many Jersey residents have their opinions on this, and of course, many of them continue to weigh in on social media when it comes to filling Michael Yoon's seat. Now, without a doubt, I'm sure that the mayor may also have something to say about this and who he would like to see fill that seat presently up until this November when he or she is up for election. And consequently, when he or she wins, will have to serve out the term until the end of 2021, when obviously they're also up for re-election. Which is interesting, though, folks, because you know what? Right now, again, it's a reminder that politics as usual is very much a staunch reality. And despite the current COVID-19 pandemic, we have to start thinking about the way government functions. We have to start thinking about governance. And of course, many Jersey residents have no reservations about weighing in on who should fill Michael Yoon's seat. I'll certainly keep you posted in the weeks and months ahead, ladies and gentlemen, as to who throws their hat into the ring ultimately and who's going to be on that ballot this November to fill out Michael Yoon's seat on the city council. And here's a special shout out to all of our emergency responders, members of law enforcement, and hospital staff who are working so hard to keep us safe and healthy during this current pandemic. Now, folks, I understand many of you are, experiencing a little anxiety while being at home, as long as we've been. But understand something, folks, that if you're going to be outside, please practice responsible social distancing. Wear a mask. Wear gloves if you're going to an essential business, such as a supermarket. Okay? Wash down your groceries if you're having them delivered. Wherever it is, let's do it and let's be commonsensical about it. All right? I understand we want to be outside. The weather's getting nicer. The sun shines out a little bit, later these days. But one thing we have to do is try to flatten this curve. And we're not doing anybody any favors by being outside and being irresponsible. Okay? Whether it comes to social gatherings, which I know the governor has discouraged emphatically, and so have our local mayors. So folks, please cooperate. Okay? If you're going to be outside, be responsible. Do the right thing. Don't endanger other people, whether it's members of your family, your neighbors, or anyone else, with irresponsible behavior. Okay? We'll get through this together. But the important thing is to be smart, show good judgment, and hopefully we'll get to enjoy some sense of summer, ladies and gentlemen, in the weeks and months ahead. I know I do, and I'm sure many of you will as well. So please take this into consideration, and folks, stay home, and most importantly, stay alive. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like them both on Facebook and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And while you're home under quarantine, don't forget that live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can check out the 3-time award-winning podcast Talking the Hudson by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. You can listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. So while you're home under quarantine, folks, and maybe you're working out, doing laundry, whatever it is you're doing, maybe helping your kids with their homework, take a break, tune in, and trust me, you'll be happy that you did. And don't forget to also follow the show on Instagram and also on Twitter. Folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it's always talking politics, right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.